Whoever controls the media controls the mind. Media is the most powerful entity in the world. It influences your daily decisions and the way we as society think. Media has a strong power over what you buy, what you wear, what you eat, and how you think and perceive others, and it also has a big influence on how you judge yourself. We live in a really fast-paced digital world, and we consume media constantly, especially with the aid of our many devices, like your phone, your computer, your tablet. Media is defined as a means of mass communication, and it's everywhere you look, and it may even be subliminal, and you might not notice it. Media comes in many forms, from TV shows, news networks, billboards, movies, music. It comes in print advertisements, social networking, and video and photo sharing with your friends. And while media definitely has beneficial effects, it's also very hazardous to the development of youth. So childhood is the most pivotal time in personal development, and it's also a time when children and teens are the most vulnerable and naive about the information that's being flooded into their worlds. So this mass communication has strong social implications, and it definitely leaves imprints on young minds. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, young people view more than 40,000 ads per year on television alone, and they're definitely being increasingly exposed to advertising on the internet, also in magazines and at school. And it's been reported that a substantial number of children begin watching television at an earlier age and in greater amounts than what experts recommend. The Kaiser Family Foundation reports that kids and teens 8 to 18 years spend nearly 4 hours a day in front of a TV screen and almost 2 additional hours on the computer outside of their schoolwork, and also playing video games. So 6 hours a day is a lot of time to be exposed to the negative effects of media. Today I'll be covering media's impact on youth negative behaviors like violence, illegal substance use, over-sexualization, and body image. The first impact of media I will discuss is the ability to make age-appropriate behaviors seem acceptable or cool. So, one major media outlet for these negative behaviors is music. Both lyrics and music videos have become increasingly explicit, particularly with references to sex and drugs. 2 of 2013's biggest hits were also some of the most controversial songs that have been released in decades. We Can't Stop by Miley Cyrus and Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke speak openly about sex and drugs. Cyrus sings about Molly doing lines in the bathroom, and she also dances very sexually. And Thicke faced a storm of negative feedback for her song because of its implication of non-consensual sex, and it also objectified women. So while these songs may be brushed off by adults and college students, I personally witnessed my 14-year-old sister and young boys that I nanny singing these songs, and it left me really rattled, and it makes you question why this is acceptable. It's also very upsetting that young children are singing these songs and being exposed to these concepts that are so far above their head, but it isn't surprising, seeing as sex is used in commercials to sell everything from shampoo to cars, and specifically alcohol. It is these advertisements and TV shows that have major impacts on youth behavioral choices regarding alcohol, drugs, and sex. Alcohol companies spend close to $2 billion every year advertising in the United States alone. In 2001 to 2007, they aired more than 2 million television ads and published more than 20,000 magazine advertisements, according to the Alcohol Center at Georgetown University. TV shows and movies also show high school parties and underage drinking as a cool thing to do, even though it's detrimental to their physical development and it's also illegal. As far as exposure to sexual scenes at a young age, between 1976 and 1996, there's been a 270% increase in sexual interaction during the family hour between 6 and 7 p.m., according to the National Health Examination Survey. And also, sex between unmarried partners is shown 24 times more often than sex between spouses, according to Michigan State University Department of Telecommunication. And then on top of this, sexually transmitted infections and unwanted pregnancy are rarely mentioned. So children are exposed to these topics, but they aren't exposed to the negative effects. Television exposes children to adult sexual behaviors in a way that portrays it as normal and risk-free, and it sends messages that these behaviors happen all the time and that everyone does it. This heavy advertising and film depiction leads to heavy youth exposure and then may lead to children participating in these inappropriate activities. Media also exposes youth to social standards of beauty and masculinity. Media depicts what the ideal body is, and it also leads young children to doubt themselves and develop low self-esteem. And this is particularly detrimental to young women, as most of these standards are completely unattainable, especially due to Photoshop. Images in media today project an unrealistic and even dangerous standard of feminine beauty, and it can have a really powerful influence on the way women view themselves. So mass media's use of these unrealistic models sends a message that in order for a woman to be considered beautiful, they may have to take unhealthy measures to achieve it. In a survey by the National Institute of Media and Family, it was reported that girls ages 9 to 10 years old, 40% have tried to lose weight. And then another study from girls age 13, 53% of them are unhappy with their bodies, and it grows to 78% by the time they reach 17. Through experimental research compiled by Dittmar and Howard, it was determined that images in advertisements, television, and music usually portray the ideal woman as tall, white, thin, with a tubular body and blonde hair. And this description fits such a small percentage of society that many women feel like they're never truly good enough. Katie Couric quoted in the documentary Misrepresentation that she worries about how much pressure her daughters feel. In a society that features anorexic actresses and models and television stars, we get conditioned to think that this is what women should look like. Now, the issue of body image does not just apply to women. There is a huge pressure on men to be manly and muscular and athletic. So overall, media is in a way brainwashing youth to be dissatisfied with their physical appearance. My final point about media's negative effects regards media's heavy use of violence. In a psychological report by Johnson and Cohen, it was revealed that the average child sees 12,000 violent acts on television annually, and many of these include depictions of murder and rape. And more than 1,000 studies confirm that exposure to heavy doses of television violence increases aggressive behavior, particularly in boys. And the main reason for this is desensitization towards the violent acts. So children see these acts and they see them so often that they lose the ability to be shocked. They lose the ability to react with the negative stimuli that's natural and that tells them that it's wrong. So this may lead to increased violent behavior and aggression in youth. So I know I can't ask you to avoid media because it's such an all-encompassing force, but I do hope that you use a stronger filter about what media you consume, or at least how much you take to heart.